Welcome back to the Nautical Chronicle. I'm your loyal host, Clausington, with this chronic series that just never. It's like a disease; you can just never get rid of it. This flares up every few months. Um, I'm here with the one, the only Geo, Giant Geo on Twitter, co-host of the Digital Archipelago, and the
Content
namesake
minded. Yeah.
content minded, and the namesake for actually one of my two frogs, which is something I think I posted it a little while ago, but he's a good frog, that Geo.
Yeah. Um
Let's see.
I forget who made my avatar. I think it was Owen Zaleski, or was it God, I forget who made, or was it Constant Gaius? I forget. But
Hmm. Oh, here he is. Uh, just about when I actually picked him up. Well, Geo's the dude on the right. He's an avaricious
oh.
little frog.
Oh, that's
And then,
cute.
then there's
Yeah.
little prude over here, stuck to the side. They're very good frogs, but poor poor Geo actually kind of picks on prude every once in a while. It's it's very unfortunate.
Oh
Uh,
God, you should see me and him in the group chat. We need a videotape feed, and like then I could like play it in the background if I ever figure out how to manipulate StreamYard, because I'm pretty like lo-fi when it comes to like intros, and I don't know, I got to do better, but you know.
it's all good. Uh, big old frog Geo. Sometimes if I start feeding little prude before Big Geo, sometimes Big Geo sometimes tries to eat little prude's head. It's actually it's, it's really sad. It's a big bully. Um,
Oh my God, I remember Lev used to have
mhm,
those intros, like he used to put like squirrels in the background or whatever.
mhm.
But I don't know. I guess when you're allegedly getting Peter Thiel money, I guess that's, you can have editing budgets. So
I
I
I
unfortunately skipped out on the Peter Thiel money. But anyways,
It's very unfortunate. Um, it's I remember only going on to break the rules like once. And it ended up being
did you?
yeah, it ended up being like a crowded mess where there was
Yeah,
like
back in the day, it was like 12 people
was
deep. Yeah.
it was like Klaus, come on, like I need like a 10th person on this panel to like bullshit about nothing. And like
It really was Twitter radio.
and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it ended up being like some like was it like a what's like the anime girl like uh thing where like it transposes over your video.
Yeah, the
It was
guy
like
at a VR rig. Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
like
he was
that
a red
except it was like a
panda.
furry.
Yeah,
Um,
he was a red panda. Or I forget what was
yeah,
his name. Yeah.
so he just like spurg for like a solid I don't know solid like 15 minutes. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
I do
Um,
kind of miss those days, I gotta admit. But like the other stuff I don't miss, but the 12 spur deep pile on,
mhm.
that was great. Maybe me and Prude should do that one day. We have a call-in show. Um I do miss those days. Like I
just
miss that part of it, but not the other
just like a
portion.
dozen like randos.
Yeah, it was like a dozen random it literally was like it was like right before Twitter Spaces, and it was sort of like proto Twitter Spaces. That's what the early like break the rules
Mhm.
streams are. Yeah, they were fun.
Well, I guess the so you, Mr. Geo, are an artist, and one of the I guess three artists
Allegedly.
allegedly on our in our spaces. The other two that I'm aware of or I interact with are, you know, yours, the infamous John D is
Hmm.
eclectic as ever, and Mr. I'm sorry, Alexander Adams. Um,
Slate Star Codex, Scott Alexander. No.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's
Alex Adams. Yeah, there's others. There's Ben, Zach Brown. There's a bunch of my friends. my friend Sean. But yeah, we're a pretty small group.
So I do have to add. So right now, I've been, I guess, the whole reason why I started this series was to, I guess, give myself some motivation to actually like build and paint these model ships, right? And my issue is that everyone likes putting stuff together, but as soon as like you start painting, it becomes something of a hassle.
Oh yeah.
Um, so I have to ask, what type of art do you do in particular, Mr. Geo?
Well, I started off as a landscape painter. I guess you could call me um, an expressionist. But in terms of like the technical of what I do, I don't use oil paint. I use acrylic mostly for everything.
Hmm.
But I do sketch in ink and watercolor. For some reason, I never got the graphite or charcoal bug, although I
Hmm.
have done them in the past. But I just something about ink, something about like waterborne mediums really excites me. Although I do know the basics of pretty much everything,
Hmm.
but I just never because you know I have a smaller studio space and
Sure.
oil paint requires a different approach and rules. Although I do paint very similarly to oil paint with acrylic mediums, but I don't know. Like I have like a stubbornness about it. I guess you could say
Hmm.
where when people say sorry, I lost track of my cigarette.
No, it's all good. This is a
Yeah,
pro. This is actually a pro smoking, pro nicotine.
I only smoke
Yeah.
on streams. I just use nicotine, but I don't. I use gum. I do have zine, but I find zine harsher than Nicorette or Thrive. So yeah,
Uh,
but
is that like a weird niche? Is that Canadian pronunciation of Zin? Zine?
no, I mean I don't know. I've never got the Z thing, but like I mean I've always said zine or zin.
Hmm.
Uh, but like I know in the rest of the Anglosphere it's pronounced Zed, but but anyways, no, I never cut the oil bug. I think like a stubbornness in me. You just said that when people think that my paintings look like oil, I think like if I could push the medium of acrylic paint to something that is approaching something more traditional. I think like I don't know. I just have that autism about it. I feel like
Well,
oil paint can be snobbish in some sense, and I'm like, well, no, like you could do something that's a bit easier on you, a bit less harsh on your lungs. Although nowadays, like I shouldn't say that because there's a lot of alternatives to like turpentine and solvent.
mhm.
So, but they're expensive.
I actually have like a big old jug of terpenoid over here.
Oh boy, yeah,
Like
like that could be harsh after a while.
like
So
the thing is like whenever I'm like applying enamels and then I dot some paint and then break out the terpenoid, like I end up
yeah,
gassing myself in my own home office. It's very tragic.
that's not good. Yeah, yeah.
Well, well,
You can buy a HEPA filter with like you can buy like a small like charcoal filter
mhm,
that'll probably cut the risk. But back in the day, like oil painters, especially like illustrators, like they were using like barrels and barrels of this stuff, and like it was maybe not too good for your health, but it is what it
mhm.
is.
Well, I mean, I can imagine, Mr. Geo like chain smoking while breaking out the turpentine
Well,
and
I'm worried about yeah. Well, I'm worried about my lungs. Yeah, yeah. Um, no, but um I found ways around it. Like when I go
Mhm,
outside, when I do plein air, there's a particular. I used to just be like pretty loyal to Liquitex, but I've noticed that there's this particular brand of acrylic called
mhm,
Open Acrylic by Golden that keeps pretty good, especially in the outside where your paint is like drying pretty rapidly. But they have uh, a formula where it doesn't dry as fast
mhm,
and it's pretty good. It's pretty robust. Although in the studio, I tend to stick to Liquitex because they don't use any like ammonia or anything that what they call off gassing, which is a concern with a lot of like latex paint or like that smell when you've just painted a room, right?
Yeah, I know.
That's the ammonia like off gassing once the paint
Uh,
dries. So they allegedly do not use it. They use it to their formulas to European standards, which is pretty
mm.
high. So yeah, I have this particular tism about acrylic paint. But I mean, yeah, what did you want to ask about oil paint?
So I guess so when it comes to oil painting, right? So for actual like model ships, right?
Yeah.
There are a few different types of weathering, right, to get
Oh yeah.
certain effects. So for white paint, um, there are two different weathering strategies, I guess. There's sort of dotting it along the edge of the actual ship, and then use like lightly applying some terpenoid to like pull it down with a wide brush to create a
Hmm.
streaking effect. But the terpenoid kind of dilutes it a little bit, so it looks a little bit natural. And then there's a sort of um, the effect of creating like a sheen, where you make a little dot and then you kind of blur it a little bit.
You scumble. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so what else? So when it comes to what like oil painting, right? I found it to be a lot more forgiving than acrylics in most
Hmm.
cases. Um, but w- in terms of oil paint, um, like are there any other, I guess, techniques that I could actually use rather than the two aforementioned ones, right?
Well, it's traditionally I know with like model painting, enamel was always the go-to medium. Um, but enamel has its own like limitations and it's expensive and um, but I think if you're generally adhering to the rules of oil painting, such as fat over lean, then you probably don't have too much of a problem. Um,
I mean,
fat
fat
over
over lean.
fat over lean means the base it's to prevent like cracking and artificial aging over
Mhm,
time where you take like you thin out the paint the beginning of the stage of the painting. Again, I'm not an oil painter, but I know the general,
mhm,
and so it has less amount of the actual stuff, the actual binder, which in 9 times out of 10 oil painting is linseed oil. So
mhm,
usually, like artists will have a formula where they'll thin the very first layers. They're very like thinned down. They're almost like watercolor. And then as you go along, then you'll use like either straight up paint with a little bit of thinner turpentine. Then you'll add more linseed oil. And there's like a lot of different formulas for things like glazing, where you're adding quite a bit of either different mediums that have made oil painting more forgiving, such as Liquin or Galkid or Alkyd,
mhm.
uh, or you're just adding more linseed oil. And there's different formulas that different oil painters have used for glazing and things like that. And glazing is in particular important for model painting, especially if you're doing a lot of like artificial weathering.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think like if you were to look into I know that for a fact there's different formulas and model painting tutorials on the internet. But if you're adhering to basically the same rules, then you shouldn't have a problem. Now, I know with model painting, um, I think for like efficiency and for the fact that they're not like, they're not like fine art in particular, a lot of people throw the rules out the window and they'll add turpentine above oil painting layers and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
So it depends on what you want to get out of it. Now enamel paint is its own like different beast, and but I think like because of the brightness of the colors and because of the ease, very similar to acrylic, although you still have to use solvent to clean your brushes and all that. uh
Yeah.
Enamel has been the go-to. Another thing too, if you have like, although it's kind of expensive, although I think like they've made it easier now. I think on Amazon you could buy a rig for like less than $1,000.
Wait.
Spray
Hold on.
painting is another. option. So
Yeah, like the usual pattern that I go with is you spray paint all of your like base coat enamels, and then then what I do is I just um, spray paint enamel colors, and then apply a gloss coat to seal it, and then I use enamel shaders. Like this is just a panel line accent color,
oh
so that
yeah,
the black enamel will seep into all of the crevices to create sort of artificial shadows and stuff like that. And then you add like white paint for along the sides to make it look like if there's like salt lines, salt streaks, and
oh yeah,
then like I have this nice mix of Windsor and Newton, um like orangey yellow and
for
brown
rust, yeah,
to like
rust
create like
lines,
an
yeah,
artificial rust. And then sometimes like people put like a sort of greenish line along the hole to make it look like it has like some algae growing on it.
yeah,
Oh,
the
really?
barnacles and the withering, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like I need to pull it up. It's I know I'm hiding it somewhere, but it's when I actually went out to visit this one when I went to visit the uh
Arts and crafts store.
no, it's I went to this one ship called the Olympia, right? And it's
Oh, an actual ship, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and when I guess as a sort of like field, you know, visit, checking out what it looks like in real life. I'll see if I have. Yeah, this was like from the side where
Oh yeah,
you can kind of see like rust stains coming out of some of like the portholes. It looks kind of like streaky, but it's not too obvious and too thin. And you can see along the water line, it's like rusted, and so the paint's coming off. It's really nasty, um, but it's it's difficult to get it looking realistic without it coming off too hard and too prominent as like you don't want it to look cartoonishly crusty, I guess is what I'm trying to get
mm-hmm,
at.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Um,
yeah.
the most obvious, okay, if you use, I think a technique of scumbling where if you sort of take like a good hog bristle, you'll splay the brush and like dab just a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of paint on the end of the bristles, and then sort
Mhm.
of like delicately glide it along. I think that will probably do the effect that you're looking for. Yeah.
Sh-
You don't want too much paint because like rust lines, they're very like embedded and they're not like very thick.
yeah,
And yeah, yeah.
there's also a certain like amount of time that you actually have to I guess let it settle. Um, like
Oh yeah. Yeah.
if you like glob on like a tiny bit of like if you glob on just a tiny bit of white paint to like the sides and then immediately apply turpenoid, it won't stick at all and it'll just become like a blur,
Yeah. Yeah.
which it's kind of counter to what the effect is supposed to look like.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you want to use like with rust lines, you want to use as little
Mhm.
paint as possible to give you that effect. Yeah. Um,
So I guess while that so as an artist, right, is how exactly does your art, I guess, intersect with the way that you interact with aesthetics and politics on
mm,
your like the you know on the digital archipelago and in the postosphere?
yeah. Yeah. Well, there's no easy answer for that
Well,
because
no,
I
it's like
don't.
it's something that you have to like. That's like almost like a university dissertation kind of question,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you're an artist, but you're also a poster. How
Hmm.
so?
I don't know. It's
Like
weird though.
a lot of people talk about, I guess, why isn't there good, right wing art, like whatever that's supposed to mean.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
con is I know nothing about art. I'm just a layman who plays around with paints, so I have to kind of probe the artist about, yes, is it intentionality, where if you specifically go after a project and have it reflect something in your soul and it ends up being, I guess, it ends up coming out with certain messaging that can be ascribed to it, then it becomes explicitly political or something like that.
Mm.
Or is it more, is Mr. Geo over here some sort of propagandist?
No, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I think like, I mean, I wouldn't want to denigrate the poster, but I think like it was sort of like a sardonic quip. But I remember this interview with what's his name, the Adam Jones, the guitarist for Tool,
Mhm.
where he's like, people see that we're metal. I kind of, it's like, ugh, I want to take a shower. It's like, when people say like, as an artist, as a poster who's an artist, it's like, ugh, I want to take a shower. No, I mean, I'm not that like that, but I think like definitely I've in the recent years questioned the validity of posting um, as an artist, and I think like what definitely like there's a hierarchy there in terms of like what's more valuable to me personally, but also I think what's more valuable on a cultural level. And I think like definitely for all of the great things, for all of the very churlish and subversive things that posting has brought us, both good and maybe not so good. I mean, definitely like I think to me, like being an artist is a bit more valuable, and that is a subjective and perspectival judgment. I mean, I think that art can become a form of posting. I mean, sorry, I think that posting can become a form of art in a way if done right. But when it comes to like the political dimension of it, I mean, I don't. I mean, like when I was younger, I used to do stuff that I think was sort of interesting. Like me and my another great artist friend of mine, Matthew the Stout. Um, we used to do stuff like we used to, you know, do portraits of certain like very like terminally online apocryphal iconic
Mm.
figures, or I used to do this whole like sort of like abstract expressionist series of different like Wojaks and stuff like that. But I think like as time goes on, it's very hard to do something that's faithful within artistic tradition,
Mhm.
but also like having like this explicit politics brain in mind. And I think like the only thing that can really bridge the gap is to treat the work of art as something organic to a culture. Because if you want to go for like a more traditional interpretation of like what the political actually is, there was a very creative right wing thinker that I probably shouldn't say explicitly, but he said that, well, of course, he was being influenced by Spangler. But okay, let's
Oh,
can the unoptical thinker
sure.
let's see just Spangler in general. Although people would say that Spangler's an optical, but whatever. Uh, what is politics? But politics is the mode and expression in real time of the organic. It is the sort of voice that encompasses the organic expression of what a culture is in real time, in the sort of temporal and present realm. Whereas culture denotes something both historical but also atemporal, in that a culture speaks to the truths of a given civilization, right? So in a way, like when people say, like, again, I know it's like a cliched term, the whole like woke is more correct. So like when people on the left they say that like the personal is a political, or no artwork can truly be free of the political, on a deeper level that is true, right? So I think you'd have to be consciously aware of it, and I wouldn't want to like lie to people and say that I have certain certain like political proclivities that, let's say, excludes me from the norm of what you could term transnational progressivism.
So
But
a lot of
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
So when people say, the right can art, and when they do, they usually point to like kitsch, usually
Mm-hmm.
embodied by someone like Thomas Kincaid, who posts, or Norman Rockwell, who post very easy and sentimental expressions of what certain idealisms look like. Um, Now, I how does this compare to your famous coin term neoliberal kitsch? Uh,
Um, well, kitsch is a hard, like, how should I say this? It's difficult to understand because you have to look at it from a historical context.
mhm,
Kitsch to me, rather, a lot of the great works, such as um, the oh, I forget the other one, Solomon, uh, what's his name, John Solomon, or even like Clement Greenberg's essay. There's this great book, actually, on modernism that has this chapter in it called "The Kitsch Man." Right? It's very good. Let me actually pull up. It's in my PDFs. I have a million, like everybody else.
mhm.
I have a million PDFs, but
You have
let's
a million
see.
like tabs that you just will never X out of.
Yeah,
Many
exactly.
such cases.
Here's the book. It's called It's by Matai Kalanescu, called "The Five Faces of Modernity." And one of them is a whole subsection chapter about kitsch, but a subchapter is called "The Kitsch Man." Right? So kitsch is in a weird way apolitical, or rather can adopt a politics, because it's something that is universal, right? It's something that the great political theorist Condilis talked about in his one essay called "Social Kitsch." He said that, like, really the problem is that I write about this in my forthcoming book on neoliberal kitsch. That the problem is that kitsch is something that's a natural impulse to us. We want something that's very cheap and very free and very easy, and contains with it a sort of like friction-free universe of aesthetic enjoyment that can be mass produced, right? So I think the problem is that in my book that I wrote, that hopefully can come out this before the end of this year,
Hmm.
it's kitsch has a dimension when it comes to politics that is both, if you want to like subscribe to the idea that the left and right are still coherent concepts, which I think in a lot of ways they are, but I think that left and right itself is something that comes off very naturally to one's given personality or one's given life world. Uh,
Sure,
the left,
sure
yeah,
that's not particularly controversial. That it's more
right, right,
social signaling than anything else, than a concrete
yeah,
policy plan or
yeah.
whatever.
So
Sure.
I think like the right wing has a very like traditional notion of like what kitsch is, and something that I critique. Like, I'm particularly critique Norman Rockwell, but I think that the left has their own version of kitsch as well. The left is very apparent when you look at the main, the main sort of like intellectual properties or like avenues of aesthetic enjoyment that any sort of like, MB kid with pronouns in the bio and with a very particular style of digital illustration profile picture, like you can get it right away.
Is this like
Yeah.
the shoot? Is this like the Tumblr sort of aesthetic?
Yeah, like
Or,
Tumblr core, like Bean
like,
Mouth, Steven Universe.
oh, that's like the Cal Arts aesthetic, right?
Well, a lot of it did come from the University of Arts in New York, but yeah, Cal Arts, for lack of a better
Mm.
term, like Bean Mouth. Uh, but also you could say like things like Humans of Flat Design, um, a lot of like contemporary mass media culture industry productions have an element of kitsch to it that is very like in a Oh, sorry, I'm getting some weird alert. What the hell?
The feds finally raided you.
Yeah, oh, some missing person. Yeah, the feds, they attack. So anyways, that was weird. I haven't got one since the ClownVid days. I think like the Ontario government, they resurrected the emergency alert program. But
Just for you.
anyways, yeah. But anyways, what was I saying? So it goes back into what I didn't finish my question the first bit, but like,
Sure.
I think that when you look at the way that people, uh, the way that people enjoy art or the sort of visual experience of most people, it's being mediated by the forces of the culture industry. It's being mediated by capital, but also by current, let's say, cultural or anti-cultural sensibilities. And that's where I invoke that term transnational progressivism. There's a very particular aesthetic sensibility that is for mass production, that is sort of like the darling of the contemporary global left. And I think that to just say that the right wing, I mean, to be fair though, the contemporary right wing is unfortunately like from like boomer conservatives even to like online right aesthetic posters, they do unfortunately suffer from this like obsession with cheap and easy images. But I wouldn't want to say that like, to me, like the point of my book that I wrote was just to strictly examine the kitsch embodied by the contemporary left. But it also talks about a lot about internet culture. It's not just about politics. But I think like the problem is that kitsch is a universal phenomenon. The cheap and easy image, especially now with AI art and with like other things, it's a very universal thing. It's a very universal impulse. And I think that when a lot of people on the political right, when they look at things like Norman Rockwell or Thomas Kincaid, or even like, Vitalist bodybuilder, Greek statue profile picture, the guy may be an Indian on the other side. You never know, right? Like, I think like that
the Indian, what's it called? Like the impression, like the content farm, whatever it's called.
Engagement farming, yeah.
Engagement farming, yeah. That's
like look at this architecture and look how it's, this is what they took from us, right? I think like that, obviously there's real sentiments behind it. There's real political signaling. Like when some like big like leftist like or irony cell account, like I don't know, like Alvin Loves War for like that Dreamleaf trans person account, like when they say that, oh, this is like fascism, it's like, well, they're kind of correct. Like, but at the same time, it's very funny though. I wouldn't call it explicitly fascism because if you look at a lot of the aesthetic expressions of fascism proper, and not to say like I label myself a fascist or anything, but like, there definitely was a huge element of what we know as modern art that has very quote unquote problematic origins in the 20th century with certain fascistic regimes. And then of course you could say like, there are certain aesthetic expressions that definitely are traditionalist, that definitely are, I think, a misappropriation of what tradition is. And I think like it's very complicated. There's something
like,
that
applying like academic art from
the
like
late
19th century. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. There's something that my good frenemy Paul Talk, who is himself a painter artist, he has this book out. It's called Art in the Age of Anxiety. And not that I agree with everything Paul Talk says, but Paul Talk can be a very cantankerous old boomer. But he had this debate recently with this other art school guy called Damien Chavez, and they were like warring out this stuff. And of course, like Paul Talk has the typical, like boomer truth regime type of stuff about fascism in the 20th century. But I think what he did do well is he demonstrated this sort of like problem with the sort of what has now been called the like trad worldview when it comes to art. That a lot of these guys in the 19th century, like a lot of these academic painters like Bouguereau, they claim to be adherent to the tradition that came before them in the Renaissance and then in pre-Renaissance art, Renaissance Hellenism, and so on and so forth. But they only retained, and this is Paul Talk's point, they only like retained, I think, like the technical prowess of that world. But a lot of those people in the Renaissance, whether it be like the Northern or the Southern Renaissance, they were getting something that was more, I would say, spiritual and less about the sort of technical obsessions of the artists that came even before them. And I think the problem with a lot of like 19th century academic painting is that you can be confused in terms of what this sort of like thing called tradition is that they claim to like be in tune with, when in reality, by the time you get to like the later 19th century, by the time you get to Impressionism and so on and so forth, and then post-Impressionism, you can argue that a lot of these other people, they were keeping a sort of spirit of what came before them that didn't necessarily translate into these very clean, very well done, very technically masterful images that nevertheless, I think, suffered in terms of the actual content of painting, whereas they were just focusing on like what they could do in terms of technical ability. And I think that's, to me, the number one problem I find in a lot of right-wing spaces is that they equate, maybe it's just cope for my lack of technical ability, but like they equate similitude to realism with tradition, which the Renaissance painters did not view that way.
You mean like I mean? Try and make your paintings as realistic as possible while having, you know, iconography and tropes from, you know, ancient,
right,
you know, classical period, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's even like modernist painters that, like Marc Chagall, for instance, that you would never like mistake him for being an academic painter. Like his painting technique was just not that. It was very almost like childlike in its simplicity. But he was using themes. He was using a lot of biblical themes and a lot of things from prehistory that, in a lot of ways, is more keeping with what you would call big T tradition than a lot of academic painting. Now, even like in now, I'm not a huge fan of the pre-Raphaelites. I know my friend Matthew Stout is, because you know he's British, and like that's a lot of that tradition. But like even pre-Raphaelite painters that often get confused with academic painting, like even painters like Burne-Jones, they were very inventive, and they were in tune to like that Arthurian romantic legendary tradition. And I think like that's why I would never like totally knock them. Although I do think that certain pre-Raphaelites can come off as very sappy and very like, you know, almost too romanticist. But nonetheless, they were expressing a deep need for tradition that wasn't explicitly, and a lot of them were great technical painters, don't get me wrong, but they weren't like doing the same thing that, say, Bouguereau was doing. They were in a lot of ways breaking off from that. And then the Vienna school after them was an even further venture into something that wasn't explicitly academic, even though they had a lot of skill. Like, for example, Gustav Klimt, he was immensely skillful as a painter, but then, you know, he went his own way in a lot of ways. But as for my personal, the first question you asked me, I wouldn't want to claim that every piece of artwork is sort of like fighting the culture war. I think like that sort of like robs a vitality in the work of art. Although I would say that, you know, as being a Canadian, although people debate whether I am a real Canadian because of my Italian heritage, don't get my friend Fortisak's, you know, hearing me say this, but like, you know, nonetheless, in terms of my life world, in terms of where I come from, I am a Canadian. So I like to think that if there's any politics, it's sort of like, and in keeping with the tradition of the Group of Seven and other Canadian artists that have come before me that I sort of live in the shadow of. And I think like that, to the extent that there's political content in, for example, a lot of the landscape paintings I've done, I wouldn't want to call it necessarily, maybe you could call it like metapolitics, but that term metapolitics has become polluted. But you could say like there is a deeper, whether I succeed or not is up to other people, not to me, right? It's not up to me as an artist. It's to me to like put it out there in the world and people interpret it as they will. But in terms of like my own personal response to a tradition, that I think is like what I'm trying to get at, rather than like I'm going to paint the latest Giga Chad dialogue. I'm going to paint Giga Chad. Like even right now, I'm doing this. Oh
no, you're actually painting him.
No, that's my point. I'm not painting Giga Chad. You know, yeah. Yeah. No, but like for example, like I'm doing this series where I'm illustrating a lot of scenes from, and it's going to take me quite a long time. I'm doing this series of paintings on Nietzsche's Zarathustra, and there's going to have like a lot of the different like illuminated borders to each of them, like a lot of like the the millefleur, like the floral borders, and like there's like little images that are related to the different chapters or different books in Zarathustra. But I made like a conscious decision. I'm not going to paint Zarathustra as like some Giga Chad. You know what I mean? Like that's there's like people that do like AI art that like, you know, they're like, here 7 lessons in Nietzsche's Zarathustra to improve your 401k. And it's got like a grok AI image of like this jacked version of Nietzsche or Nietzsche's Zarathustra. It's like, I don't want to do that, you know, like, because in actually, if you actually read Zarathustra, you know, like Zarathustra doesn't come off as like this like stereotypical, you know, jacked, buff, Giga Chad like figure.
He's just the the wise man of the mountain comes down to impart his wisdom, and some of it, I would say, some of it is very Giga Chad, but
right,
you know, it's complicated. On your point about, you know, the sort of academic art missing out on the actual aesthetics of this capital T tradition. A couple years back, I visited Philadelphia Museum of Art and came across Cy Twombly's Iliad.
Oh, the infamous one, yeah.
He's trying to imitate antiquity. How do you say, graffiti? You know, how would the ancient Greeks have, you know, hyped up, you know, Achilles and you know the Athenians or whatever? Like, how would you depict the you know, the city of Troy's people,
the everyday life of those people,
in their own sort of graphical design, propaganda, whatever? So you went back and looked at, you know, what they actually look like and how can I riff off of this. And it's brutish. It's definitely not something that's very it's almost accessible in a way that kind of hits you over the head with how accessible it is. You know, like, of course,
I think he was looking at images.
Achilles is angry. Like, look at that scroll.
I think he was actually looking at images of graffiti that was uncovered in various ruin sites by archaeologists. That's a very interesting concept. I mean, a lot of people, especially in like the online, right? Like, because of Paul Joseph Watson, his like 2 videos of modern art, a lot of people like give Cy Twombly a lot of heat. Like because of the red ones, like the red spirals or whatever. But if you look at a lot of his work, I think like he is in keeping with that tradition of abstract expressionism. Like I quite like some of his works. And this one, I think like
Shield. Achilles,
I mean, it is cool. Yeah, like I mean, it
Vengeance.
is like,
it's vaguely phallic.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is crude. It is demonstrating a point. Like I guess like to quote Melania Woes, it comes off as overtly clever. But there definitely is something to it. I mean, they're not my favorite Twombly works, but I think like his attempt to sort of like retrace what the average Athenian was feeling and thinking when they wrote graffiti. Like, you know, graffiti really is like, that's another thing too I get heat for, is being like more pro graffiti when it's done good. Because like graffiti definitely is something very ancient in terms of like commandeering public space for one's own mark, one's own impression. But I would understand like why this would offend people's sensibilities in terms of a more traditional perspective. But at the same time, in a weird way, like it is in keeping with oh man, someone's gonna clip this and just totally bomb me for this. But like it is like keeping.
You hear that, Clippers?
I wish. Yes, there are people that clip DA. Like I wish I had like a like Nick Fuentes. I wish I had like an army of clippers, but maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe Anyways, no, but it is in keeping with a certain form of the Western tradition, even though it's sort of like taking present eyes and interpreting it through archaeological discovery to sort of like think and feel through the work of art back to like what you would see as an average Athenian subject. This is what you would see in daily life, right? But I think like when you put it in a fine art context, similar to like when you take graffiti and you put it in a gallery, there is something to be said that it does rob people, it robs the expression of its vitality. But yeah.
Like I do think it, if you're, I guess, a little bit more of an iconoclast, you'd say
Yeah.
something like, it insists upon itself.
Yeah, it does. I that's a fair criticism.
But
Yeah.
but you don't want, I guess, when you're going to like a gallery, you don't want. I'll just bring up
I never
Kincaid.
personally
You don't.
liked
You don't.
writing in the paintings. I never personally liked that. I mean, and I get it, like people like Jean-Michel Basquiat. But in terms of like my own artwork, I would never like write something on the
Isn't
paintings.
Basquiat Warhol's
Yes,
apprentice?
creation.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should see some Mr. D. He reads Warhol's journals on his you know his spaces, and sometimes he'll like read his journals. And some of the things Warhol said about Basquiat, oh boy, I can't repeat this on air.
Well, right now I'm sitting in Pittsburgh, and we have,
Carnegie.
The
Yeah.
Warhol Museum,
Oh, I've been there. Yeah, it's
and
great. I love the Warhol. Yeah.
I don't know. So some of it's a little bit out there.
Oh,
Um,
definitely. Yeah.
but some of it's, some of the exhibits are a little bit childish. Some are a little bit out there.
I like the
Uh,
'70s room because I think like anything after the '70s, Warhol became like a weird parody of himself. To quote what did his great art critic Robert Hughes, he said, Warhol devolved into self-repeating kitsch. I
hmm.
think like the '70s were really like the height of Warhol's career. I think like the '80s he was very consciously aware of himself as an icon, and so I prefer sort of like '70s and later Warhol.
Let's see. Yeah,
Yeah.
like one of the first things you come up to in like the museum is this room of like floating, like,
Oh yeah.
oh, this is kind of cool. Like these sort of
One of the media rooms like his films.
surreal rooms.
The if you go down, if you scroll down, the Elvis ones,
Oh,
that's
this.
one of my favorite Warhols. Yeah, because of printmaking, because the way that he sort of faded out by
Mhm.
doing ghost prints, it's like, and they have like the whole side of the wall is covered with that one continuous print of Elvis. Did they try to cancel Elvis recently for
Uh,
sleeping with a 15-year-old or something?
I mean that's just what happened with his wife.
Oh yeah, yeah. He met her when she was 15.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like Destiny, like with the 17-year-old. I tried to talk about that in
Well,
Mr. D Space. I said they just like shut me down. They're
well,
like,
what do
yeah,
you
I do
mean?
not want to talk about Destiny. So,
Well, come to think of
yeah.
it, like in about half hour, I'm chatting with Distributist about BreadTube, and I was going to bring up the recent Destiny debacle.
Jesse
So,
being nonce, yeah, or his
well,
kid, yeah,
his kid is wild,
yeah.
a little bit unhinged.
I
Uh,
personally think like I want to get this on the record.
mhm.
I think like I really feel. I mean, I obviously feel really bad for Destiny's kid. I think that being on the internet does him no service or favors, but of course like he never had like a real father figure. So I think like him like wading into the antithesis of his father is not really like a good move. Like I think like he could mature into definitely somebody who is serious, but I think like I saw this thing where an someone sent his kid, who's underage by the way, it's technically a crime. He sent his kid the infamous video of Destiny doing what, and
Aw, that's kind of tasteless, you know,
terribly tasteless,
terribly
terrible,
tasteless.
terrible.
Disavow.
But you know who I blame there, apart from the guy uh sending sexual material to a minor? I blame Destiny. I blame the little guy because he put himself in that position, and it's just I can't really say what I want to say about Destiny. So let's move on.
Well,
Let's move on.
okay, so he's not an
Yeah.
artist. Are there any
As a
particular
locale, he could probably be one, but
yeah, are there any particular artists that you can recommend that people check out on either like
well,
Twitter or our sort of spheres?
oh yeah. Like well, I mentioned my friend Matthew Stout. I mentioned Zach Brown. I have a great interview with him on my own show, Content Minded. I think he truly is one of the best artists of our living age. I have a
Was it
bunch of
Matthew
other
Stone? Was it?
Matthew the Stout. Oh, and Zach Brown. Yeah. Who else am I thinking of? I mean, you mentioned some like Fen de Villiers, Alexander Adams. Uh, there's a lot of great writers in our sphere as well. Like there was that big profile in the Rolling Stone magazine. A lot of those guys are great, like Matthew Pegas and Adam Ruiz. But like in terms of visual art, there's like not a lot. I mean, there's certain friends of mine. I've mentioned my friend Sean. I like to try to retweet a bunch of people. Like I'm sorry for forgetting their
No,
names.
it's all right.
Yeah,
And
but
this
I
is
retweet
what
a lot of
you're
stuff. Yeah,
this
yeah.
good old article.
Oh yeah. I mean, Dan Baltic's there. No, but a lot of the visual artists that I know, I tend to retweet them. So if you go to my Twitter page, I'm always retweeting works from my friends. I make a conscious effort of that.
Yeah.
But
Unfortunately,
it's got a lot of heat and attention, that Rolling Stone article.
yeah. Unfortunately, I believe Alexander Adams unfollowed me due to my participation in the anime. Was it the anime posts of conversions of old?
Oh, the Ghibli,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Ghibli filters.
The Ghibli phase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he unfollowed me for a little bit, then he refollowed me. So yeah,
Well,
you could probably ask him to
like
refollow you.
as an appreciator of the movie Master and Commander, I had to Ghiblify it. One photo. You get what's like the Voltaire phrase? One once a philosopher, twice expletive. Um, once an appreciator of a good movie, second a weeb.
Yeah.
So I wash my
Yeah.
hands of this business.
That Ghibli thing was crazy, but it like burned out very fast. This is why like I'm not really threatened by AI art, because to me like it is sort of a gimmick. And there are people like if you go to like Instagram, there's a lot of like video artists that are doing interesting things with AI. A lot of it is sort of like found footage horror stuff, but I kind of like that stuff. But I think like AI art, it's sort of waning in the fact that like all technological advancements, it's sort of the delivery of its promises is way more mundane than either what people fret over or what people promise in terms of its greatness or innovation. So I think like AI images definitely is a problem in terms of the like effluvia of slop on the internet that never stops. And
yeah,
but in terms of like its actual impact on the work of art, I mean, apart from like people that are doing illustrations and people like my good friend, you should check out my good friend, the animation critic Spum Donor. His his YouTube page, I think it's called Animation Aesthetics. He has a great breakdown on a lot of this stuff. But he came on my show and we were talking about this, and he said, "Well, like a lot of illustrators, people that like work in the quote unquote animation industry, or people that like, these like kids with Wacom tablets." A lot of them might as well be AI art. So like it's like, oh, God forbid they do something original, right?
well,
So I think like it's to me, I think like in terms of fine art, AI is not going to pose that much of a threat, because I think that people have accepted the mundanity of the conditions of like, oh yeah, here's like some AI slop. Yeah.
yeah.
Did you see the African American Indian one? Native American, sorry, indigenous one?
No, I haven't. Is that like some sort of meme thing that I ended up missing?
Yeah, because like a lot of these like Hotep people, they believe that,
Oh, yeah, the
and so
pyramids and
so they made
yeah.
they managed to like trick Black Twitter into thinking that like there were these like indigenous American people that were African, and it's like people are like, this is AI, right? And they're like, no, that's like robbing us of our history. And it's like, so I think like, AI art definitely will do a number on the psyche of a lot of people that aren't very literate when it comes to the internet in general.
The poor
But
boomers on Facebook, like,
yes,
God
that's
help
another
them.
example.
God
Yeah,
help
God
them.
help them. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
doomed.
But I think like that's just going to be a filter, like everything else on the internet. Like I think like Clownvid was a huge filter in terms of how people approach and that was an impetus for writing my book as well. Like how people approach the image on the internet became this like weird psychic filter when people were forced to adopt the conditions of life that was terminally online, and a lot of people weren't equipped for that. And I think like we're even seeing the effects nowadays of, like you said, like the boomers on Facebook. Another great art critic, although he is like, he's
Sure.
like he's a kind of a lib, but I really enjoy his work. Do you know Brad Tromel?
Brad Trammell. I don't think I've heard of him.
He used to write like mainstream art critic articles, but he mostly does these videos on Facebook Reels, sorry, Instagram Reels, and he's a great art critic, and he talks a lot about like he like breaks down the different nuances of slop on the internet. It's like this whole series. It's great. Um, yeah,
Well, I think I think the AI thing ended up being a litmus test for people who are either sort of more NPC-ish, where they can't really differentiate. You can't notice the very small things like an extra finger here or there, or like
right.
the background doesn't make quite much sense. Letters are off, and people who are extremely paranoid and skeptical about everything, where it ends up being nothing ever happens, nothing on the internet's actually real, and
Yeah,
incredibly nihilistic.
dead internet
Um,
theory. Yeah,
Dead internet theory. So I think it makes things a whole lot more, I guess, pessimistic, because worldviews are more pessimistic because everything is just flooded with junk and
yeah,
noise, to the
yeah.
point where you can't actually filter out what's actually real. I mean, the internet is just, even before AI, is mostly just noise and junk
Yeah.
and
Well,
signaling.
mainstream culture is mostly just noise and junk.
And then you have
Yeah,
like an automatic AI junk printing machine that's
yeah,
trying to like get as many engagement clicks as possible.
yeah.
And
Like all these like film buff people, like they got the letterbox thing
mhm.
in their account handle on Twitter. Um, but then they like talk about like Disney slop of like using like the Star Wars extended universe. And it's like, okay, what are you doing? Are you a film critic? Like it's or like this real impactful emotional moment in this like Marvel limited series by the CW. It's like,
Well, that
yeah,
just sounds like engagement farming through
yeah,
through other means.
yeah.
It's not highbrow. It's the lowest brow possible.
But
You
it's
know,
treating like the lowest common denominator as something that's highbrow. And I think like AI really is a great filter in the sense, like you were saying, if you wanted to like bring in a political dimension, like I mentioned, the Hoteps using AI to say that like black people were in America before pre well, it's debatable like if it was
pre-Columbian or whatever it
well
was.
pre-Columbian, but also like the Norsemen that came to Native America.
Oh, they're
Um,
Norse too.
yeah,
Fantastic.
like even before that, there were like black people in America. Like if you bring in a political dimension to AI images, I think it's largely a product of people, even like the boomers on Facebook, when it comes to like soliciting emotion from them. Like you'll have like a lot of weird AI images of like, do you remember those ones? It was like not even a Ghibli, but it was sort of like a chick track cartoon, but it was like a soldier saluting a pregnant woman in the bedroom, and they had like the American flag everywhere. And it's
I, I
like,
I didn't I don't think I recall that one.
oh, these ones are great. If there's like whole accounts that catalog AI slop on Facebook. But the point being is that I think like people see what they want to see on a very intuitive level. And I think like when you bring in a political dimension to that, even further still in our day and age, there's sort of like a weird like wish fulfillment thing going on
Oh
that
no, I
you
actually
know,
looked it up,
yeah.
or I just looked up the very cursory. Oh, why don't these photos ever trend? And it's a golden retriever
Yeah, yeah.
with like 5 legs.
If you look up beautiful cabin crew, okay, like type in beautiful cabin crew, Scarlett Johansson.
Beautiful cabin cruise.
Yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
this porn? Geo,
No.
what is this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Look at this. Look at this stuff.
What am I looking at?
This is the AI slop. This is, and it's always, you can tell like Indians are doing this. Like this hashtag cabin crew, hashtag beautiful,
Oh, here it
beautiful
is.
cabin crew, Scarlett Johansson. Look at this. Just look at this. Oh, they got an Asian version. They got an Asian one holding a Christ. Yeah, yeah. Oh my
Huh.
god. Yeah, this like boomer AI slop. It's like, oh my god. Oh, look at this one. Oh my god.
Does Christ have like legs morphing out of his chest?
I
There's
think
like
it's like
titties
to
are.
hold a. He's like carrying some woman, but like the AI
There is
couldn't
no
render
woman.
it. Yeah, there is no woman. Yeah, there is. It's supposed to be. Why does he look like Head from Corn?
I don't know, man.
Brian Head Welsh from Corn. He looks like. Oh
All
my
right,
god. Oh look at the Jesus one where he's like in the clouds, in the
let's
cabin.
pull this back
Um,
up.
no, but my
Um,
point being is that like yeah, there's an element of there's a deep psychological need. There's a deep scratch that's the AI slop is trying to etch. Oh, is that Shiva or Krishna?
let's,
The
let's
the one in the bottom, one below. If you there's Krishna, I think.
no, that's
That one.
extrolling.
Oh my god.
Keep scrolling. All right. Well, Geo, I actually kind of have something of a hard cutoff at my hour-long
All
mark,
right.
but I do enjoy bullshitting about the shitty memes on Facebook and AI and
Well,
what
there's
have
definitely
you.
something going on there. I think that's yeah.
But I do have a stream at 7 o'clock with Dave the Distributor, so I need to run off and grab myself some dinner before then.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh yeah.
so it was a pleasure having you on, Geo. Um, I do need to up my acrylic game, and I'll hit you up if you have if I will hit you up for any art tips that I might need in the future.
Yeah, sure.
But do you have anything you want to shill or plug before heading
Well,
out?
on my Substack, I just came out with an article actually. It's very shorter one, but it's about literature and about it's really about like the internet and lolcows, and it's the first link on my Substack, substack.com/Giant Productions, and you can get the full episodes of like content minded and other like limited stuff. I want to, do like half paywalled articles as well there, and also on patreon.com/Giant Productions, and that's my shill. Both of them are only $5 a month, so there you go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on, Geo, and I'll see
Thank
everyone.
you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll see everyone in the audience in 20 minutes for the distributed stream. And thank you, Geo. And we are out.
Thank you.